All right, so basically, I'm trying to see if I can do two different live streams side by side, but just resetting my stream key. But I do have a topic I want to talk about, and I want to talk about basically everything that I'm seeing these days is really summed up by the concept of tribalism. And I, I have a huge problem right now with the fact that all the tribes are basically just trying to control people. So you have the kind of the left, the media, right now, and the media is lying to us about all kinds of stuff. Um, they're lying to us about this thing that's going around, and they're trying to basically use this to control people. And they're they're attacking the governors, and they're saying, "Hey, you governors in you red states are you're not doing enough to stop this thing." And quite frankly, there's nothing you can do. It's absolutely nothing you can do. Um, all we were really supposed to be doing was bend the curve down, right? Bend the curve, and we were supposed to kind of social distance and quarantine. And by the way, a quarantine of healthy people is something that has never been done in the history of the world. This is not something that we always do when these kinds of things happen. This is really a draconian response. Um, so we're trying all these crazy things that we've never done before and have never been proven to work and are not going to work. You know, if you have a disease with an R naught of higher than 2, I mean, they were saying at one point it was like maybe 4, like between 3 and 4. Now it looks like maybe it's 2.8, whatever. We don't even know, right? We have no idea because the thing could be spreading at that higher rate of 3 to 4. Or it could be spreading at the lower rate of 2.8, you know, but that's still a huge rate. We have never been able to stop anything. We still have cases of the common cold, right? We still have flu cases. We cannot stop this. So when people say that this is like the flu, they're saying that it spreads in a very similar way. It's actually more more communicable, which means and I've heard some people talk about how they think that it may be basically from a lab, that there may have been some gain of function research that was being done in that Chinese lab, and that may have, I mean, it's just too much of a coincidence to be discounted at this point, and we don't really know, right? So maybe not. But there's no way that we can stop this thing from going where it wants to go. We may be able to slow it down, and that's what the stop the or flatten the curve was about. But now people are talking about, oh, we have to wait for a vaccine. There may never be a vaccine. We don't have a vaccine for the common cold. We don't have a vaccine for many viruses that are out there. We've actually never been able to create a vaccine for the coronavirus or a coronavirus, right? And this is just another coronavirus. So there's no guarantee of this. So the media has basically pushed on conservative and Republican governors to shut down their state. And today, I find that my state is shutting down again. We were opening back up, and now we're shutting down. Really, this is the height of folly. We know that the shutdown has been detrimental to everybody. Like I am very upset about the shutdown. I have not been happy about the shutdown, and now it's going to extend. Listen, if you think you can keep people shut down and social distanced for like a year or more, you are out of your fucking mind. You have got to be crazy. This is not a solution. This is draconian tyranny. That is all it is. It is draconian tyranny. Shutting down bars, shutting down, restaurants where basically there's a now a limit. Like they're only allowed to be open to like 25%. Now it seems like there's an order that the governor has put in place, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just going by what people are telling me when I try to go into businesses. They're saying that if you don't wear a mask, they won't give you service. Now, I personally think that is absolutely unacceptable, right? It's like the governor, and by the way, I'm in Florida, so the governor is Ron DeSantis, has forgotten that he's not a legislature. The governor is not a legislature. You're not allowed to just sit down and pass laws with your pen. That's not how it works. You don't have that authority. You don't have the ability to tell people to wear masks. See, the whole concept of this channel, Citizens Are Not Slaves, is that the government can't just decide to give any order to a citizen that pops into their head. Because guess what? We're not your fucking slaves. All right? We're not your fucking slaves. So you can't just decide that we're going to do something and it seems like a good idea to you. So why not just order us to do it? Right? Why not just order people to do it? Well, because you don't have that fucking authority. You're not that guy. You're not a king. You're not a sovereign. You're not a dictator. You don't have the authority to just sit down and write laws. When did we forget that? When did we freaking forget that? Because Ron DeSantis, when he was running, I don't remember him ever saying, "Oh yeah, I will pass laws with my pen. I will just sit down on my governor's desk and write new laws for the people of the state of Florida to follow." I don't remember that at all. And even if he did say that, it wouldn't be legal. It's still not legal. You can run on a platform that you can't actually execute as governor. But he didn't even run on this. I am at wit's end with fucking Republican bullshit. I've been voting Republican because, the Democrats have given us absolutely no options. But how do you think you can do this? You can't do this. And this is the problem with, first of all, the two-party system is a problem. But the bigger problem is the fact that we have to actually have a governor, right? And we have to have a legislature. And here's the thing, the legislature could actually come in and pass this law pretty easily. Right now, the political climate is such that it would be easy for them to pass that law. I have a solution, though. I do have a solution. The other day, I went on Amazon and I did buy myself a mask. And I will be wearing this somewhere tomorrow, right? As a protest. This is the new mask. I'm going to wear this mask as a protest to the governor's unconstitutional, unlawful order that he has issued. You are not allowed... Yeah, you just said we had to wear masks. You didn't really, I don't know, maybe you said medical masks. But here's the thing. People are wearing all these, personal makeshift masks that they're making themselves or that their grandma is making them. And they're knitting masks, for crying out loud. And if you can wear that, then I can wear this. That's all I got to say about that. So, how is it Republicans don't understand the Constitution? Right? I thought Republicans, every time I go to a Republican meeting, we all talk about the Constitution. Whenever I go to political meetings and we get a bunch of Republicans together, we all talk about how great the Constitution is. And then we elect some fucking moron who goes up and just uses the Constitution like toilet paper. How is that the case? How is that where we're at? Why are our candidates so bad when the party doesn't want it? The party, the people, the grassroots of the Republican Party do not want this. But we keep getting it. How do we fix it? How do we solve it? I don't know. But this basically, what we have, and I'll tell you how it happens. Let me bring it down a second and kind of explain this. Republicans want to be seen as reasonable, rational. We're not just crazy people who believe in the Constitution and freedom and to hell with all else. We want to be seen as having some semblance of reason. So when the press says, but millions of people will die, Republicans cave in and say, okay, I guess we'll do something. Don't get me wrong. People will die. People will absolutely die. But I think People would rather die free. That is my absolute 100% always my position. People would rather be free, and usually that's the case. Now, I will say this too. I think the media has absolutely scared millions of people. They have come out and they have talked about this thing all the time, and it's like it's the novel coronavirus, and they're using a lot of big words that people don't understand. And that's scary. They're scaring people. But the fact of the matter is, our laws didn't change. Our law, like the Constitution of the United States, our basic fundamental underlying method of government, where we have a representative republic and we elect a governor and we elect legislatures and we have judges who are appointed, that hasn't changed. It hasn't changed at all. How is it that the government has forgotten itself? Like, the DNA of the government is that we have a separation of powers, and yet it is completely forgotten. I really think that at this point, Ron DeSantis should be recalled. I am just tired of him. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. Who's that other guy? Gilbert, or what was his name? I can't even remember his name. He was that forgettable. But he did recently get caught doing drugs in a hotel with a gay prostitute. I mean, like, you can't make this up. That was extremely embarrassing. If he'd been our Gilla something. Anyway, I could look it up. But if he'd been our governor, we would have had even worse problems, right? Because he's one of the Democrats, and he probably would have come out and tried to be strong and say, oh, I will do this, and if you don't like it, that's too bad. There's, like the mayor of Chicago, who's basically, what is it, Wisconsin has somebody doing some crazy stuff. It is hard to keep track of how much crazy stuff is happening right now and how much of it is unconstitutional and unlawful. But here's the thing. The federal government has a responsibility under 1, Section 4 of the Constitution, and 2, the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. And if a governor is violating the rights of the people, the federal government should just step in and say, nope, you can't do that. We are guaranteed a Republican form of government. And also under Section 4, it says that the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the several states are entitled to them. The citizens of the several states shall be entitled to the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the several states, right? One of the things that Florida has done, which is completely wrong, is they have absolutely just turned to the people of Florida and said that a privilege is something we can take away anytime we want for any reason we want. And that is not true. That is not true. Privileges cannot be stripped just by snapping your fingers and, the stroke of a pen. Privileges and immunity. The privileges and immunities of the people of the several states shall be entitled to them. Again, that's not exactly what it says. That the citizens of the several states shall be entitled to the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the several states. Basically, you can't strip privileges and immunities from citizens unless you go through due process. You also can't do that legislatively, right? So, like, you can't say, well, we're just going to go ahead and, we said you could do this thing for 100 years, but we're going to take it away now. No, you can't do that either. So the idea that they can just start shutting down businesses, right? And that's what they say, like, you have to get a business license to engage in business, which is not true. You do not have to get a business license. You can actually engage in business as a private individual just fine. You don't need a business license. You can have a storefront. You don't need a business license. As long as that is a sole proprietorship, as long as you own everything that is going on there, you don't need the government's permission to do anything. You don't need the government's permission to have people come into your store. You don't need the government's permission to sell things. You don't need the government's permission for anything. Now, the government may come after you because they're used to it. They're used to having those licenses and privileges. But the Supreme Court has actually ruled that as a private citizen, you don't owe the government anything other than not murdering people, basically, not committing crimes. So, and you do owe some taxes, but you don't owe them you don't have to go get a business license, right? Now, corporations, on the other hand, which is what most people do because of the tax purposes, the tax benefits, they will go and file for a corporation. And then the corporation will own the store, and then they actually do have to get a business license because corporations are entities or creatures of the state. So what a lot of people don't realize is that they're basically giving up a lot of these rights by doing this. You have the right to just engage in business on your own. You don't have to have the government's permission. But even at that point, the government then cannot then just come along and say, well, we know we've let you participate in business and do all this stuff, but we've decided you can't do business anymore. That's actually not legal. So they're stripping your privileges and immunities away from you without due process, and that is absolutely unconstitutional. So, but here's one of our main problems, right? Nobody knows what the Constitution is, doesn't know what it says, doesn't know what it means, and nobody knows what their rights are. People will say, I know my rights, but they don't. I actually know my rights better than most people, and I still don't ever proclaim that I know my rights because I know enough to know I don't know them all. And that is what I'm going to leave you guys with. Yeah, man. The Republicans are just screwing the pooch right now. And the Democrats are clearly no better, but they're not the governor of my state right now, so I can't be mad at them. They're also not the president of the United States. Now, in the president's defense, the president has actually tried to open up the entire country. He said he had the authority to do it, and everybody quickly said, no, you don't. I actually believe he does. Under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, the federal government is charged with defending the rights of individuals from state oppression. So if the states are oppressing the individual, the federal government has the authority to stop them. That means a presidential order ordering the states to stop any and all illegal oppressive activity, like an order to open up all the states, would be a legally binding order on the states, right? So, and this goes to another I said I was about to end this, but this goes to another key principle of law, and that is, for an order to actually be lawful, it is not sufficient that it does not violate a law. It actually must have a legal basis. In other words, you can't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, dig a ditch from there to there. You actually have to have a legal basis to give your order. So you have to, like a police officer, for instance, cannot detain you unless he sees you commit a crime or that he has, I don't know what the Supreme Court is saying these days, probable cause or whatever. But the point is, you can't just be detained for no reason. For the same reasons, you can't be ordered to do a thing or not do a thing for no reason. There has to be a reason, and it has to be a positive reason, and it has to be supported by law in order for that order to be a lawful order. It's not enough that there's just no law against it. So this idea that, hey, we're ordering everyone to shut down, there's no legal basis for that. There's no basis in law to tell all businesses in a state to shut down. And I know that's the case because no one even thought of this before this year, right? This is something that has been kind of thrust upon us in the current year. Never been passed through a legislature, never been debated on in public. They just decided that they were going to issue these draconian unlawful orders, right? So that's clearly not acceptable. However, you flip that around, you go to the president, he bases his order on the 14th Amendment of the Constitution and says, hey, your order is unconstitutional. Therefore, I'm ordering you, based on the 14th Amendment, to cease and desist this unconstitutional action. And he does have a legal basis in law, the highest law in the land, as a matter of fact, to do that. So I think that he just basically needs better advisors because I think he's got the right instincts at the moment. But the states are all basically violating our rights. Well, not all of them, because there's 3 or 4 states that have never closed down, South Dakota being one of them. And I think maybe I might just have to move. I'm going to have to move to somewhere where people actually care about the Constitution of the United States again. that'd be really nice. Definitely. I mean, at some point, I'd like to go. To Washington D.C., but I know they don't care about the Constitution there. That's the place they care about it the least. So, anyway, you guys have a great night. Thanks for listening, and I will be doing more of these. Talk to you later.